Hey there! I'm glad to see you again. I'm Pam Schmidt, chemical minimalist. And today I want to introduce you to my new friend, April Emanuelson. And we actually met through a Zoom together with other healers that are going to be at the Rejuvenate You experience in August. But we haven't talked that much. So I want this chance for me to get to know April and for you to get to know April. April, hi. It's nice to meet you in this kind of
Yeah,
circumstance. Tell us a
likewise.
little bit about what you do with helping people.
Absolutely. So I am actually a functional nutrition coach. I work at a local clinic and throughout the years I've noticed people come in, they want a health shift, and sometimes it's pretty simple. We can kind of take some of the mystery around health away and give actionable plans that are really doable. And then there's a subset, I will say, of women typically that have a lot going on. They're entrepreneurs, they're moms, they have maybe multiple businesses, and then they have also these health challenges, and they end up being very stuck because they're lifting a little bit more, I would say, than the average bear. And so I really started to want to dive into those women because I'm kind of like, I don't want to leave anyone behind, right? You can't, for me, it's like everything is fixable and we're going to fix this. So, really kind of started diving into my own journey, realizing that there's so much more to it. We need parenting resources, we need relationship resources, we need more than just, what to eat. So
Hmm.
I actually developed a program where we encompass all of that, and I kind of act as a concierge, if you will. And we bring those pieces to a woman that kind of start by peeling the layer back of the onion, right? So maybe at first it's some tools, and then after that it's looking at some trauma work and going from there. So that's it in a nutshell. But you know
Yeah.
what? It's funny. I realize I don't know you, and I know we were kind of challenged to go like, wait, let's flip the script here. So surprise, I'm going to interview you to get to know a little bit about you. Um, because sometimes we forget to tell our story and, or at least pull out some things that your audience might not know about you.
Mhm.
So
Excellent.
first off, tell me what being a chemical minimalist. I know a little bit about your journey with health, but where was the moment that you were like, oh, it's really what's in my environment?
Oh, I think it was so subtle. It started probably even when I was pregnant, and that was 35 years ago. And, it just was one of those things where I just wanted to experiment with something more natural, and it started as simple as cleaning with vinegar on my
Mhm.
floor. But as more health challenges showed up in our family, I would push myself to look at it a bit more. And back then, the internet was not as much a resource.
Mhm.
It was way later in my family's story that I was able to do researching of that sort. So, it would come from authors that I became aware of, even from a talk show. It's like, oh, I'll get that book and start looking at it. So we were rolling toward, getting more natural things going. And then when my husband got tuberculosis over 30 years ago, it it caused even greater change. My At that point, I knew that I needed to start looking at greater ways to reduce toxins in our home. My husband's TB did not only settle in the lungs, it went throughout the body. And so his stamina and everything else has been forever changed.
Mhm.
And so when I start using, certain chemicals, even something as simple, something like Simple Green, there's so much in there that's not healthy and so overpowering that we started noticing, my daughter's asthma kicked up, my dog was sneezing, I was coughing, my husband didn't feel good. And so, I just started eliminating and finding alternatives. And it ends up that many of the alternatives are pretty simple things that you
Mhm.
already have in your cupboard. So, it's gone. That was just a personal thing. then there were friends at work that would say, what do I do about this? And, what do I do about that? And I'm big into supplements. So sometimes I would give my layman's advice. And later on, I mean, in the last few years, I've met our friend Bronwyn, and she encouraged me to make this a formal mission to help others. And then we had the pandemic and chemicals upon chemicals. So
Mhm.
that's kind of where I've come from.
Love that. And kind of thinking about the average bear, right? Someone um, that doesn't have much background or much, maybe even cause, like you had this great cause, this great need. Sometimes in those moments of desperation become inspiration. Um, Kind of the average person, what would you say would be kind of your top three? Like if they just wanted to take a peek into removing some chemicals, what would you say? Like focus on those things that you said are so super simple.
Yeah.
Top three super simple things they could start using.
I would say air quality in the home, bleach and bleach products, and artificial fragrances. And the um, air quality in the home and the fragrances really go hand in hand. We've become fragrance addicts. And so, I really would recommend that people start looking at those ingredients on the labels that sound like fragrance. And then there are those that are so lab sounding that you wouldn't even recognize it. So you need to start knowing what those things are and improve air quality by opening up the windows a few minutes every day, or getting an air purifier, or adding in plants. And I always have to show my at my elbow baby
Oh, nice.
because plants do a lot for you emotionally and grounding and all of that, but they definitely can help with the air purifying. You need more of them versus a plug-in machine that
Mhm.
purifies the air, but that helps. Bleach products do big negative punches in the gut for our immune system. And so that's a tough one for people, but there are alternatives. And sometimes something as simple as, for me, I've recently gone to using the half of my lemon that I squeezed into my water. I use the rind for cleaning my sink.
Mhm.
And, it has a lot of antibacterial properties. The fragrance does a lot for a person emotionally. And so there are those kinds of things that a person can work with. Another alternative, like for a sink, hydrogen peroxide. And that can do a lot to help get rid of bacteria and mold. And it doesn't have any fragrance it's going to overpower you. It's cheap.
I didn't even think about that because sometimes, let's just be gross, right? Sometimes your bathroom in particular, because you bring up that little thing, it's all like black
Oh,
and like mushroomy or something. But that'd be perfect for that. Um,
yes.
Speaking of bleach, what about laundry? That is the one last place I put a cat full, and like towels or my hubby's stinky shirts.
Yes. And laundry is where fragrance and bleach meet, and for me, I go with a very natural, light, fragrance-free detergent. I use the Norwex Ultra Power Plus, but there are many out there. And if I feel like my laundry needs more boost, I bought Arm& and Hammer, what is it called? Washing soda.
Hmm,
It's different than the orange box. It's a yellow box, and I add that to my laundry. Sometimes I add the good old borax powder, and those help boost, and you're not doing fragrance. Then you get to the drying side, and I do use the wool balls. I
mhm,
have a lot of them. I have about 6 to 7 of them that I put in a load.
right.
And if you're needing and wanting fragrance at that point, you can add some essential oils to the laundry ball, the wool ball, and it will help fragrance up your laundry a little bit. It's hard to get used to reducing fragrance. Like I said, we're addicts, and
Mhm,
it's really important that we start pulling back from that, because most of them are synthetic, And
Mhm.
most of them are going to mess up that endocrine system, which involves the hormones and the glands. And there's a
Absolutely.
balance, and the balance gets messed up. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Because, well, and certainly, I have backed off of fragrances, but I think also, I just don't want those smelly fragrances or stinky fragrances. So that was kind of like the last frontier with the bleach, but that gives me some great ideas. And then I'll do something like if I'm having people over and I want the house to smell good when they first come in, is I'll just make muffins, you know, something nice in the
oh,
oven that helps. But
that's
so
lovely.
I love that you mentioned the endocrine thing because those endocrine disruptors are super prevalent in so
Yeah.
many things, and that not only can whack out our thyroid but our sex hormones, it whacks out our adrenals, all those things. And I remember something you said when I was first introduced to you was about the microplastics. Can you tell us more about that with the fragrances? I'd never heard that before.
There is a component of what is used in most commercial products for fragrance that does involve microplastics. And the interesting thing about that is if you're spraying something around the house for fragrance or whatever, if it's in your laundry, it enters through the nose, and from the nose, it goes into the lungs. And these are little molecules, little particles, and they can attach to dust particles. And so, we're breathing dust particles regularly. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
it's,
Yeah, there's no way around
it's,
it.
it's reality. So, nose to lungs, into the bloodstream, and from the bloodstream, these molecules are going to the organs throughout the body. And in the last couple of months, I've been seeing reports that researchers and scientists are finding microplastics in the lungs, and not just on the surface of the lungs, but deep in the lungs.
Hmm.
And that can come from masks and clothing, and toys and bottles and all of that stuff. Fragrance falls into that and has the microplastics. So we can't avoid all exposure to these microplastics, but fragrance is something we can control and,
Hmm.
improve our health simply that way.
Yeah, that was really pivotal for me because I had no idea, first of all. And then it makes sense as it's such a small particle that you're
Mhm.
breathing in, and that's one of the reasons you smell it, right, in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, so fragrances, so you said air, bleach, and fragrances. What do you use typically? You said essential oils, right? And then just lemon. What other ideas do you have in terms of making something
Those are my big things. I have learned to do less, to bring less fragrance into the home. So if I have somebody coming over and I feel like you smelled the broccoli that I cooked, I
love it? Yeah.
that's always that ugh. But if you didn't eat it, it doesn't smell good. But I do use essential oils in that way, and so I will put together, in a spray bottle, my essential oils with maybe 3/4 of the container filled with water, and then the last quarter filled with vodka, because that gives it a little bit of a fixative. And so I just shake it up and I'm spraying around the house. That works pretty simply. And then diffusing essential oils, which it's a little machine. You put the oil and water in, and it
Mm,
creates a fine mist. You've got to get good quality essential oils,
mm,
because there are some, if you're buying it for $4 or $5, it's probably not as pure as it needs to be. Either the carrier oil is not super pure and
mm.
happy for our bodies, or the oil has been, done in the cheapest way, and you're not really getting the pure benefits of it.
Yeah, awesome. Great advice. One last thing I'd like as we're kind of wrapping up. Um, I wonder if there's something that the people that listen to you don't know about you, a surprise thing.
Hmm. I think some of them know this, but I was a farm girl. I grew up on the farm in Central California. I live, 10 miles away. And it was not an animal farm. My dad still farms. And when I was little, it was a lot of cotton and grain, and over time, more vines. And now, when I'm not there, it's a lot of tree fruit like peaches, plums, nectarines, oranges, that kind of thing. But anyway, as a girl, I loved playing in the dirt. I didn't like playing with dolls. I got them for Christmas, played with them for a couple of weeks, and put them aside. And I'd rather go play in the dirt, play with cars, all of that kind of stuff. And embarrassing, when we were little, we loved to play in the little, I don't know, 2.5 foot canals next to the crops. And because we'd get muddy and it would stain the clothes, all we would do to swim and play in that canal was we had mud panties.
That's awesome. You're out there being
And
wild and free.
so, well, but it was next to the road, so if somebody drove by, we'd have to make sure we were ducking enough that they wouldn't see us, because
Oh,
you're only in your panties out there. But and we
yeah,
were little.
that's so cute. I regret that about, I think, what kids get to experience nowadays. There was so much more freedom. I mean, I'm in my mid 40s, and me too. I actually was totally into. I had all neighbor boys. I'd much rather play with people than the boring dolls in my house. So it was cars and mud. Um, but that there was, I mean, we're outside all day. There was
Yeah,
no Facebook and the internet and all of those things like that. We didn't have that
yeah,
competition for our children's imaginations that we do today.
yeah. And to
So,
think, when we played in that canal, that ditch, there was nobody watching us, and
mhm,
there was no threat. No
yeah,
scariness that somebody was going to pick us up. That
yeah,
was very different. So in that way, our world has changed, and I'm hoping and expecting better changes to come.
yeah. I love it. I do see a hope in this next generation where they're just kind of breaking down barriers and walls and things that I'm
Mhm.
hoping something wonderful comes from it. Well, Pam, what a delight. It's so fun to get to know a little bit about you, and hopefully that was a fun treat for
It was fun
your
for me, and
adult to
we're
learn a
gonna
little
flip
more.
it. We're gonna flip it. April will get this
It's
one
my
too.
turn next, isn't it? Oh, no. All right, well, what a delight. I'll let you wrap it up.
All right. So, I want to let you know that April and I both have tickets, discounted tickets, to go to Rejuvenate You in Murray, Utah, April 4th, 5th, and 6th. All you have to do is message us, because we'd be happy to get them in your hands. And even if you just want more information, please make contact with both of us. So thank you, everybody. It was fun, April, and we'll see you all later.
Thank you.
I'm ending. End.